أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب منه آيات محكمات هن أم الكتاب وأخر متشابهات فأما الذين في قلوبهم زيغ فيتبعون ما تشابه منه ابتغاء الفتنة وابتغاء تأويله وما يعلم تأويله إلا الله والراسخون في العلم يقولون آمنا به كل من عند ربنا وما يذكر إلا أولو الألباب صدق الله العظيم بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone again. Welcome of course to my dear friend Sheikh Fahim. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Always a pleasure, Sheikh Saeed, being with you on this special day on Thursdays.
Of this special day of Thursday, and for some people it might already be Friday, and some people are just waking up. We have a global community and so many time zones, and we are honored to have people join us from around the world. And of course, if you're watching just now, let us know in the comments. It's always good to see that some people are with us live and others will catch up later on, inshallah. And as always, we are going through some of the reflections that have showed up on QuranReflect.com over the past week, which is week 5 of the global Quranic calendar. Just to remind us about that, we have the website, which everyone will know by now, Quran.com, and then we've got /calendar, and here you can find every week your weekly readings. So now that we are in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, which is the month after Shawwal, which is the month after Ramadan, now we are in week 5, in which we have begun Surah Ali Imran, and just in this week we have already covered the first half of the surah. And then in the next week, where all this information will pop up on Friday, as it usually does, inshallah, we will then see all the way to the end of the surah. And then onwards to Surah An-Nisa, and onwards and onwards. There's Al-Hijjah, we'll be celebrating Eid al-Adha, and at the same time, we'll be maintaining our weekly readings and continue our journey through the Quran, which will take us all the way to next Ramadan, inshallah. So what a blessing, and what an enjoyment actually we get from hearing that people are doing this with us, that are taking part, are watching the Divine Book Club. Here is Sister Minella, who always is here on time to catch our live streams, and brother or sister Autumn, I don't know, is the person called Autumn? Is their name Kharif in Arabic? Welcome anyway. They said Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So to you we say wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So let's push right ahead with the reflections that you've chosen for us, Sheikh Fahim, yourself and your team who do the moderation. We don't like to think of it as moderation. We think of it as review and empowerment, right? Because it's about encouraging the reflection community to take part and to get the best out of their reflection experience, to continue to learn on the way, and to get better also at sharing. So here is Nadia L. I think that we did encounter one of her reflections before. I was thinking she should be called Nadia W, because it's a winning reflection. But here we are with Nadia again. So which ayah is this pertaining to, Sheikh Fahim? Oh, I'm going to guess. Hold on. Because I'm seeing the baby is from the mother's womb, I'm thinking it's in the first page. وَالَّذِي يُصَوِّرُكُمْ فِي الْأَرْحَامِ كَيْفَ يَشَاءُ. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. Verse number 6.
We gained experience now. We can see the reflection, and we can back We started to ask ChatGPT as well if it can figure this out, isn't it? We plugged in some reflections and said, can you see which ayah this reflection is relevant to? And it's quite interesting results that we're getting so far. But this is such a powerful ayah. So why don't you tell us about this reflection, and maybe if you want to read it to us.
Yeah, sure. Before I do that, I think Sister Autumn, or perhaps brother or sister, says, keep my family in your du'as. We're all sick. May Allah Azza wa Jal grant you all shifa, ajilan kamilan. May you, inshallah, may He grant you shifa swiftly to full recovery, inshallah. Ameen. This reflection is quite interesting. So Sister Nadia says, this ayah reminds me of when I took a course on childhood development in college. For one of our assignments, we had to watch a video on how a baby is formed in the mother's womb. I remember feeling quite emotional, seeing the process through the 3D visuals, and not only that, but also hearing the narrator in the video talk about how it is a miracle that each and every single one of us is here today, as there were so many things that could have went wrong. Watching that video made me in awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation and how He has full control of all things. We think of Allah taking care of big things like our galaxy, but sometimes we forget that even that little embryo, Allah is providing for it. Subhanallah. This ayah also reminds us of how weak and dependent we are, or we were, and that is something that should humble us. As I'm writing this, I'm also reminded that a few months ago I came across a journal that my mum wrote. My mum wrote while she was expecting me. She wrote it as she was writing letters to me, and she would document all the things that were going on. Things like if she had morning sickness, when was my due date or her due date, and how there were times she couldn't sleep during the night because of the pain I caused her. I felt plenty of emotions when reading these letters, but it was something that reminded me of my own weakness as a human being. It's quite interesting. I find that, of course, this is something that we can all reflect on, the hardship that our parents went through. Of course, Sister Nadia, to no fault of your own, did you cause any pain to your mother? It's a natural process of being pregnant, that mothers will often go through these stages where they have to endure a lot of this burden and pain. May Allah Azza wa Jalla reward her. But there's a stark reminder of how vulnerable we are, how Allah has, through His mercy, has taken care of us through the many stages of life, and that He's always been there as our guardian, overseeing our development. And as we form in the womb of our mothers, He's given us strength after weakness, and not only as a fetus or whilst we're being formed in the bellies of our mothers, but also when we come out. Allah reminds us that we were in a vulnerable state of weakness. Allahu alladhi khalaqakum min da'fin thumma ja'ala min ba'di da'fin quwwatan thumma ja'ala min ba'di quwwatin da'fan wa shayba, as Allah reminds us in verse 54, Surah 30. He says, it is Allah who created you in a state of weakness, then developed your weakness into strength, then developed your strength into weakness and old age. He creates whatever He wills, for He is the all-knowing and most capable. There are so many verses that are attached and connected in so many ways to this reflection. But the fact that she's in awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ability to create and how He has full control of all things, I think was a very powerful reminder. And we can learn from our own birth and from our own development before we are born, and even after we are born. So many things can still go wrong in our lives.
Absolutely. And that's the thing when we talk about miracles. We have this idea that a miracle is defined as something that is supernatural, it goes against the norm. But so much of really what could be deservedly called miracles are things that have just gone right and could have gone so many other ways, and should fill us with awe, but also gratitude, these two things hand in hand. So really every time a child is born, it really is a miracle, even if it happened according to what was hoped, what was expected. Subhanallah, next in this, later in this surah, we have the mother of Maryam and her expectations. And I want to remind everyone to make use of the PDFs that we share on the Quranic calendar page. In that, as well as a translation and a few clarifying notes, we also have these little things that Sheikh Fahim helps us put together, which is reflection and action points. And I'm sure there, one of the reflections was, what can we learn from the mother of Maryam about, having, planning and hoping for your young one. So there's this connection between this and the creation of Jesus, without any father. So even in the start of the surah, it kind of touches on things that are themes later in the surah to come back to. So yeah, I'm just reminding everyone, make use of these reflection questions. They might help you also to follow up and write something on Quran Reflect that relates to it as well. Let's go to the next reflection, which I believe comes from Zainab, and it pertains to this ayah, which comes right after, the part that we've been reading in the beginning of the surah. رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْوَهَّابُ. I'm sure that many of us have memorized this dua. Our Lord, do not let our hearts deviate. After you have guided us, grant us your mercy. You are indeed the giver of all bounties. So let's see, what does Zainab say about this dua. It's one of her favorites. I'd heard people give reminders about how much of a blessing being born into a Muslim family was. But the emphasis on dying as a Muslim, being the real win in life, came later. So you could connect this to an ayah later in the surah as well, right? Within this week's reading, right? Because ayah 102 perhaps, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ, and do not die except in a state of Islam and submission to Allah. The thought of being given Islam at the beginning of my life but having it taken away by the end is absolutely horrifying. This dua was definitely a wake-up call to any sense of entitlement I had. Being Muslim isn't unconditionally tied to me. I have to earn its keep. So we have to stay in God's grace. Very good. What did you want to reflect on with relation to this?
Yeah, it's powerful, isn't it? In that quite often we have a false sense of security that because we have the privilege of believing and have the privilege of being a Muslim, it is not necessarily the case that we will die upon the state of Iman and Islam that we enjoy right now. And this dua reminds us to constantly be in search for guidance and constantly to ask Allah Azza wa Jal to help us to remain on the path. That's why we're constantly seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance. We're inviting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance in every prayer that we make. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim.
Right, in the Fatiha itself, yeah.
So it's a very, I think she says here, being Muslim isn't unconditionally tied. You have to, and it's keep. It's quite interesting. We earn it by following up on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance, by following the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by being in that constant search, by remaining motivated to going back to Him and seeking His guidance. It was a very powerful reminder. Jazakumullah khairan, Sister Zainab.
So then the next ayah that's reflected on here, it's one that I think is quite well known. Like, people always say Allah is the best of planners, and they're taking it from this ayah and its translations. وَمَكَرُوا مَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. And the disbelievers made a plan. In the context, it means that they plotted against Prophet Isa alayhi salam, but Allah also planned, and Allah is the best of planners. This is one of the translations, a bit from the way that we have it in our PDF. So this is Talha saying that it's one of my favorite ayahs, and he's linking this the thought that he's having is related to what's going on just now in Palestine. Of course, we are all, torn up at what we are witnessing of the genocide against the Palestinian people, and the ongoing, whether conflicts, disasters, injustices in different parts of the world as well. Knowing that no matter what some people may do, thinking that they have the upper hand, but Allah has His plan, and His plan will come to be. So he says, it is our job to have tawakkul, to make an effort through our actions and our spirituality, and that we are part of Allah's plan. So He may use us in different ways to enact His plan. So again, knowing that justice will be done, everything will be all right in the end. So that's one thing, but you cannot then just say, well, I'm going to sit back then. Allah will take care of it. Rather, the question is, do we have a part in that or not? Are we going to be the means by which justice is done, freedom is attained, or are we the bystanders? Are we the ones who then lose out? Are we the ones who would then also be blameworthy for having sat on the sidelines when things like this are happening?
Yeah, I think where you framed it, are we going to be bystanders? I think this is an important point. Tawakkul, of course, has two elements. What is the spiritual and the fact that we depend upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we believe in the outcome and that ultimately He will take care of things, but at the same time we must exercise our human agency. We have to try and take by the means. And in the same surah we find Allah Azza wa Jal, He commands us to do good and to forbid evil, and to invite others to what's morally upright, and that is an obligation that's conferred upon us as a community, as Muslims, and also as individuals as well. And so all the protests that we see, and all those who are advocating for justice, and we've seen today in the ICJ, South Africa coming in representing the plight of the Palestinians and bringing a robust case in order to prosecute Israel. That is all in the pursuit of Amr bil Ma'ruf. And as Muslims, we have to go beyond just the dua. We have to take that practical step wherever there is or whenever there's an opportunity to get involved and to advocate for the Palestinian plight. We should be there, as well as make the dua, and as well as give donations and so on and so forth. So Jazakallah khair, brilliant reminder and very pertinent, especially in the midst of what's going on.
Absolutely. So moving to the next reflection, this seems to be, I'm afraid I'm not sure how to pronounce the first name. Iraj, perhaps? Marjan. It's a beautiful. Marjan is coral, right?
Right.
Right. So this is pertaining to an ayah which is very, very dear to me. I'm sure it's dear to many people. Regarding the oath that was made by the mother of Maryam, who's known as Hannah, and made a vow to dedicate to Allah whatever was in her womb. Her intention was to have a son. But then when she gave birth to a girl, she wondered how a daughter could possibly serve the cause that she had consecrated the child for, that is to say, to serve in Bayt al-Maqdis, right? Given the societal constraints and physical shortcomings, yet she trusted in Allah's wisdom and dedicated her daughter to His service. So the lesson that Iraj is drawing from this, often we await the fulfillment of our desires, the achievement of a goal, so we may express our gratitude to Allah and dedicate the outcome to His paths. But we may become fixated on our own objectives and forget Allah's wisdom, right? Doesn't this relate to they planned and Allah planned and Allah is the best of planners? We remember our desires but neglect Allah's plan.
Right.
If we receive something other than what we asked for, we might receive a different blessing, but we fail to recognize it as such. and we start to say, why didn't we get what we originally sought? I think a lot of times we make dua and then we think the dua wasn't answered, but it was answered with something better than what we were asking for.
Right.
We may even ruminate on the fact that our intention was genuinely sincere, and yet we didn't get what we wanted. And this is a whisper from Shaitan. This is an interesting statement, isn't it? This isn't faith, but humanism. But we should instead adopt the wisdom of Hannah and reflect on how we can dedicate the blessings we have received to Allah's path, how to use the resources that we have been given, right? We should not be disheartened by the change in circumstances, but use our intellect to recognize the blessings we have received and utilize them as a means of drawing closer to Allah. That's wonderful. I really like this reflection. And I also really like, because I mentioned this in the Divine Book Club episode, the statement, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَّرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. In this particular translation, this is Mustafa Khattab's translation, it's considered to be a continuation of the mother's statement, which is possible, right? Part of it has to be seen as, well, this was not from her statement. Wallahu a'lamu bima wada'at. In this reading, in this qira'ah anyway, it has to be Allah who said it. But the male is not like the female, has been seen here as a continuation of her speech, although it could have been seen as part of continuation of what Allah said. But a lot of times people see this as just saying that males are not like females. And let me tell you, everybody knows that, and there's no need that Allah would send revelation to tell us a basic fact like that. So we should see it as meaning something a bit more than this statement. And I really like what you can find in some of many of the tafsirs, actually, starting with Imam Zamakhshari, maybe before, that it means the male that she thought that she was going to get is nothing compared to the female that she was actually given, right? So that might be a statement that Allah is making to affirm the status of Maryam, or even that she herself, following on from Iraj's reflection here, it could be like she says, wow, I have given birth to a girl, and you know what? That male that I was hoping for is nothing like this female that I have been granted, who is so wonderful. Maybe we could think of it in that way. And Allah is best.
It's no surprise that scholars such as it was the one who wrote the Siyar al-Akhlaq wa Siyar, Ibn Hazm rahimahullah. He has a compelling argument to suggest that she was officially a prophet. Of course, there's a classical debate as to whether
says that. Imam al-Qurtubi also even says that most of the scholars say this. He might mean most of the Spanish scholars. I don't think most of the scholars say it, but it's not entirely uncommon view that Maryam is a prophet, because she did receive communication from Allah, and she has a very high status.
No doubt, and judging based on the language of Surah Maryam, with Kitabi Ibrahim, and remember the mention in the book of Ibrahim and all the other prophets, and then of course her name is also mentioned in that list, which is again a very plausible and a very compelling point of view. But yeah, Jazakumullah khair to Sister Iraj for that. We got Sister Fayaz, who says, so true, the story of the mother of Hazrat Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam can also be taken in the literal sense. Sometimes we desire sons, and Allah gives us daughters, and indeed the daughters are source of rahmah and a gift from Allah Azza wa Jal. Jazakumullah khair.
Because even the expression, and this is subtle discussion around it, but when you say, what's considered a very high status car and what's considered a low status car, Sheikh Fahim?
A high status car may be something like a Rolls Royce or an S Class.
What's a low status car? Being careful not to offend anyone.
Wouldn't offend anybody. Let's just say something like a Citroen.
Citroen, okay. Nothing against Citroen. If you've got
nothing against you French guys.
High status like Rosa. So which expression would we say in English? A Citroen is not like a Rolls Royce, right? Or would you say a Rolls Royce is not like a Citroen. You would say a Citroen is not like a Rolls Royce.
Yeah,
Right. So this is an argument also in Arabic that the male, it's not every male is inferior to every female, but rather in the specific story, this makes sense. That the male is not as good as, not compared, not comparable to the female. Allah knows best. This is
mashallah.
not a serious session, but yani, it's a reflective perspective on it as well.
But
Let's end on this one about the rope of Allah. I'm conscious about our time today. So وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, and hold firmly to the rope of Allah and do not be divided. Would you like this to read us? Would you like to read this to us, Sheikh Fahim?
yeah, sure. So, Brother Tanveem, he says, the rope of Allah is a special phrase to me. I'm putting it in a physiological perspective. Rope climbing is hard at the beginning, but once someone grows the strength in Iman, then it's only the way upwards and everything becomes easy. At the same time, horizontally, this rope helps us stay within limits, saving us from eternal punishment. If we consider ourselves blind and lost, this rope, Allah's message, the Quran, will keep us in line and make our path easy to reach the desired destination in heaven. It's very interesting because I think typically we see the rope can symbolize many things. And when we think about holding on to the rope of Allah Azza wa Jal, one may view that to be a vertical sort of, gripping onto it vertically. But I like that he flips it and he says actually horizontally, it can also guide you to, if you ever watch someone walking on, a thin sort of, metal piece, I'm sure these adrenaline junkies do it. If you have ropes by your side, it'll also support you and guide you to keep on the straight and narrow. And as he says, helps us to stay within the limits, saving us from eternal punishment. So I liked how he focused and he imagined the rope and he imagined how one can make use out of that in its physical sense, but then also bringing it back into, of course, the rope is figurative of Allah's guidance and Allah's protection, so on and so forth.
But I suppose that's nice to think about. Can we understand this along with the imagery of the straight path, which is, sometimes people translate it as the upright path, as-sirat al-mustaqim, which I really don't like, because how do you go upright on what does it mean for a path to be upright? And for a path steep is not an attractive thing, and that's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about the straight path. There is falaqtaham al-aqaba, but we can come back to that maybe some other day to ponder on that. But there is a straight path which is level, and this rope can also be the way that we keep on that path together. That's a very nice way of tying those ideas together with the rope. But usually I think about this in terms of what's said just after he saved you from the brink of I was about to say a fiery fit. That might actually work. A fiery pit, right? So, even if you were drowning in water, for example, a rope that is your lifeline, hold firmly to this rope, and you will be saved from the fire or from drowning. So the imagery in the Quran is always so rich, and we shouldn't just restrict ourselves to a first impression or to one interpretation or just what we might read in a tafsir, but it should be something that we allow ourselves to explore a bit more and think about. And yeah, some of those ideas could be good, some of them could be weak. Some of what I said just now might be, later on I might think it's a bit silly. It's okay to just allow yourself to actually experience Allah's words, try to appreciate them as much as you can. And, if you get the chance to, present that to some people more learned who can give you some feedback, then do that. And of course, we have QuranReflect.com to provide exactly that service as much as we can. So, reminder to everyone, Quran.com/calendar, and of course, QuranReflect.com. as your place to share your thoughts as you continue to read. Next week, inshallah, we're reading through the second half of Surah Ali Imran. I myself, I'm enjoying this journey so much. I'm having to, spend more time with Quran translations than I usually do, even though I do spend a lot of time in my normal life. And I'm getting the chance to dive into different tafsirs to get what I can of the basic meanings that we share then in the episodes. And it's great that people are joining with us and also sharing on QuranReflect.com so that we can benefit from more perspectives and definitely increasing our appreciation of Allah's words. And believe me, no matter how much someone may be, may have studied or be a scholar or whatever, nobody is above learning from their brothers and sisters. And that's really a great blessing for which we thank those who came up with this wonderful idea of QuranReflect.com. And if you're benefiting, then please spread the word, tell your families, tell your loved ones, write about it on social media, get people to sign up. Why would you keep that to yourself? Why would you keep that a secret? This should be absolutely a very open secret.
Brother Salah said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakumullah khair for joining the show. And please, as Dr. Sohaib said, these recordings are. Mashallah. There you go. Because it's my cave system, and Ella says, mashallah.
Okay, no, let me show you that one, because I think she's saying that Quran Reflect is her cave. So it's a big enough cave for everyone, Welcome them in. Welcome them in. And stay for 309 years.
I was introducing the platform of Quran Reflect to a sister yesterday who joined, and I was saying that I don't think we have an equivalent platform that allows for the public, for brothers and sisters across the globe, to submit their thoughts about the Quran, and then to have a moderation panel who review this, and then we consult with scholars and we review it and we discuss it, and then we post it and make it public, and then the entire world is there. It enriches so many people. So many people benefit from it. It's part of your sadaqah jariyah, and to be able to put your inspiring reflections out there so others can also be uplifted through it. So please do join, and please do reflect. Inshallah, bi'idhnillah. Jazakumullah khairan. And
Excellent. Jazakumullah khairan, and love to everyone who has tuned in and those who are catching up later. Please do let us know in the comments any suggestions that you have to improve this program in any way, and inshallah we will try to do that and take these things on board always. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.